Good evening, everyone, and welcome back to the Sam Hossack Media YouTube channel. I'm Sam Hossack, that's Matt Cusack, and welcome to our 2021 IIHF Women's World Championship breakdown video where we're going to preview this Women's World Championship that gets going in Calgary, Alberta tomorrow night. Matt, how are you doing?
I'm doing well, Sam. How are you?
I'm doing good. Now, we'll get right into things here. We'll break down the participants first. So there's Canada, Czech Republic, Denmark, who was promoted from Division 1A, Finland, Germany, Hungary, who was also promoted from Division 1A, Japan, ROC, which is Russia, Switzerland, and the United States. Obviously, ROC from Russia, due to the doping scandals a couple of years ago, they're not allowed to use the Russian flag or the Russian national anthem at any Olympic or World Championship through December 16th of 2022, so next year. And they've got to compete as neutral athletes. And for the IIHF tournaments, the Russian team will use the logo of the Russian Olympic Committee and play under that name, ROC. Now let's get into the schedules here. Canada takes on Finland tomorrow at 6 o'clock Eastern, followed up by Russia on August 22nd at 6 o'clock Eastern. Then the 24th of August against the Swiss at 6, and August 26th against the US at 6 o'clock. And Matt, who we have on here today, thanks again for joining us. But you're from the States, so I'll hand it over to you to break down your country's schedule for this year.
Yeah, so the U.S. starts off the tournament playing in Switzerland tomorrow at 9:30 p.m. Eastern. Then on the 22nd, they play Finland at 9:30 p.m. Eastern as well. And then the 24th, they play Russia at 2 p.m. Eastern. And then they end off, like you just said, on the 26th, playing against Team Canada at 5 p.m. Eastern, or 6 p.m. Eastern. My apologies.
Now, before we change into breaking it down for the college players and why you're kind of on here today, and we'll get to that in a minute, but what do you think the biggest difference for the women is going to be for that U.S. side when they have to change playing a 9:30 game to playing a 2 o'clock Eastern game?
Yeah, I don't think it's going to be a big difference just because it's on a different day. I think ultimately one thing I've learned from talking to other college hockey players is in the Frozen Four, they have the early game and then they have the later game as well. And playing the later game, you kind of have to wait for all the other games to finish up. So maybe that they won't have to be they have to be kind of patient during those games. So maybe like having an earlier start might benefit them more because they don't have to like wait for another game to finish. They can kind of just jump right in and play at 2 o'clock against Russia.
Absolutely. Now, the reason you're here, you have your College Hockey Talk podcast that is very successful. So I'll hand it over to you for the US side. And what we're going to do for the US and Canada teams is break down the players that are college hockey players and kind of talk about what our thoughts are. So I'll hand it to you for Team USA to start.
Yeah, so which position do you want to start? Because the entire team has played in NCAA action at some point in their careers. So I think it's best to start off in net with the three goalies they'll be playing. And you can just come right in and just give me your thoughts on some of the goaltenders as well. So Alex Calavini, she's going to be probably, it's either her or Aaron Frankel who will be the starting goaltender for Team USA, I would assume, for this tournament. Now, Alex played for Minnesota, and Aaron obviously is currently still with Northeastern. And then Nicole Hensley played for Lindenwood and during her college experience. And I was very surprised initially when Aaron Frankel was left out of the Team USA roster. Obviously, with Maddie Rooney's injury, she's now going to be playing in the tournament. But she's obviously one of the best goalies in the country, won the Patty Kazmaier Award last season. And I think she can bring a can bring a big impact for this Team USA team for this tournament if she plays.
Yeah, that's definitely going to be a big thing. I know me and you talked about that when Franco was left off. She's one of the Sam Hossack Media sponsor athletes, so I'm glad to hear that she gets a shot. Unfortunately for Maddie Rooney, who doesn't get to play, that's unfortunate for her, and we wish her all the best in recovering from that. But obviously, yeah, Frankel, she has the resume to be the top goaltender in that tournament, and we've both seen her play. I've seen her play on highlights, and I'm sure you have. And anyone who follows college hockey and Hockey East knows exactly who she is. So the two other goalies there are definitely big superstars too. But for Frankel to win the Patty Kazmaier last season just proves how good of a goaltender she really is.
Yeah, I think it'll be interesting though to see because maybe the U.S. wants some more veteran leadership in net, especially because Franco hasn't played with the national team in quite some time. So maybe they will go with Calavini. But I think Franco, if I were the coach, I'll put her in just because of how dominant she was last year with Northeastern. Just look at the numbers; it's pretty insane to think about how she just shut out pretty much every team in Hockey East every night and gave that Northeastern team a chance to win every night as well.
Yeah, absolutely.
So let's go on to defense now. So for defensemen, the top pairing is Megan Keller and Kayla Barnes. They are both from Boston College. Then Lee Steckline and Megan Bozak are the second pair defensemen for this Team USA team. They're from Minnesota. They played with the Gophers. And then Jinsey Dunn and Natalie Bookbinder are the third pairing of defense. Jinsey Dunn played for Ohio State, and Natalie Bookbinder is currently with Wisconsin right now. And then the final pairing for defense is Caroline Harvey, who is a commit to Wisconsin. Since she is going to be centralized, I'm not sure if she will play for this upcoming season with Wisconsin. However, in the 2022-23 season, she will be playing with the Badgers. And then Savannah Harmon ends off that last pair for the defense for Team USA. She played for Clarkson University. But before I say my thoughts on this defense, do you want to have any thoughts on any of the players at all?
Yeah, that top D pair is definitely going to be pretty good there. Obviously, Kayla Barnes has won an Olympic medal, I think maybe two with Team USA. She's had quite the career at Boston College from what I've seen as well, and even Bozak there too had quite the career as well. So that top D pair is definitely going to be something for Team USA to watch as well.
Yeah, and something I noticed about this U.S. defensive pair is how there's a lot of veterans, but there's also a lot of young players that are heading in the team as well. Like I mentioned, Caroline Harvey, she just graduated high school and now she's going to be playing for Team USA for this tournament. So I'm interested to see what she looks like since I've never seen her play in person before. But I think there's also some other new faces that I really like. Jinsey Dunn was one of the best defensemen in college hockey last year with Ohio State, and it's good to see that she's finally getting her opportunity with the national team for this tournament.
Yeah, it's great to see some of these girls that get their chance finally. Obviously, for the older ones like Bones, who's been in Olympic Games. Obviously, she did that at quite a young age. She's a 1999 born, so not many people that are 21 get to say that they played in the Olympics at 17 years old, which is pretty amazing.
Yeah, definitely. And then Megan Keller also on that top line. She has some experience as well on the defense, and I really like her as a defenseman as a lot. She does everything right as a defenseman. Great shutdown pair, and I think Kayla Barnes is also good for that power play, being that defenseman as well. And then the veterans that they do have, Steckline and Bozak, who both played in the Olympics, I think they provide great veteran leadership for some of these younger defensemen that are going to be part of the national team this year. So I really like this U.S. defense pairing these U.S. defense pairings, and I think they're going to be very successful in the tournament starting tomorrow.
Yeah, absolutely.
Now let's talk about the forwards because the forwards I think is the most interesting thing to talk about for this U.S. team because they do have another good mixture of both veterans and young players for this forward group. So the top line for USA is Kendall Coyne Schofield. She obviously played with Northeastern and won the Patty Kazmai Award there. Brianna Decker, she played for the Wisconsin Badgers. She also won a Patty Kazmai Award as well. Hillary Knight played with Wisconsin as well. She's in that top line. Excuse me. Second line, Alex Carpenter. She played for Boston College. Abby Rock, who's going to be the center for that second line. She played for Wisconsin. Amanda Kessel. She's also going to be on that second line. She played for the Gophers of Minnesota. In that third line, it's Danny Camarese, Kelly Panic, and Abby Murphy. All three of those players played for the Gophers. And then that fourth line is Haley Skamura, Jesse Confer, and Grace Sumwinkle. Haley Skamura played for Northeastern. Jesse Confer just finished her senior year with Boston University last year, and Grace Sumwinkle plays for the Gophers as well. Before I say my thoughts on this offense that Team USA has, what are your thoughts on it?
Yeah, they've got some depth there for sure. A few of those forwards have played in Olympic Games for Team USA, and then you've got the girls like Murphy and Zumwinkle who have a chance to go to the Olympics next year. They're both on that centralized team for Team USA. Obviously, they both won't be at Minnesota this year to play, but they've got some talent there for sure. And I mean, even the girls that are coming up too, they definitely have a lot of talent, and to be on this USA team that's stacked up front is definitely an honor for them for sure.
Yeah, I think that's the main difference I noticed between the Canadian women's national team versus the U.S. is just how the veteran leadership that the U.S. has, especially in their top line, because all three of those players, like I just mentioned, like Kendall Coyne, Brianna Decker, and Hillary Knight, have been around for Team USA for a long time, and they're kind of on the end of their careers potentially for this Team USA run. So I think it'll be interesting to see if this is their final world championship or not, and just how they help those younger players move along for their careers as well.
Yeah, absolutely. As you mentioned, those three definitely have been a big part of USA hockey over their careers, and obviously Olympics next year, probably their last Olympics and probably last World Championship this year as well. So they'll be putting their heart on the line for sure for their country this year.
Yeah, so for players I'm looking out for Team USA, some new players, I should say. I think Jessie Comfort, she's on that fourth line right now, or at least that's where she was playing for last night's pre-tournament game. But she had an outstanding career at Boston University, and I feel like she can develop to be a really solid player for this Team USA team moving forward in the future. Obviously, you got Abby Murphy, who had a great season last year for Minnesota. She's another young player. I can see her being a key part of that Team USA team moving forward for next year's Olympics and for future Olympics and World Championships as well. But I'm also excited to see some of the older players, like we talked about, some of those veterans. Kendall Coyne is probably one of the best American women's hockey players of all time, and I think it'll be cool to see her win another women's World Championship along with Decker and Knight. So I think this team has a good mix of veterans and young players, and I'm interested to see how they match up against Canada, who's very similar on that front as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And now we'll jump into Team Canada here. So uh, you jump in with your thoughts here as well on what you think of these players. But we'll start on the goaltending. You've got Kristen Campbell, who is a grad of Wisconsin. Then you've got Anne Renee Desbiens, who is a grad of Wisconsin as well, and Emerson Mashmeyer, who is a graduate of Harvard. Obviously, they're all with the PWHPA now, post NCAA, but they all had great careers in college hockey for sure, and definitely going to be great to see those three. What are your thoughts on them?
Yeah, I think Kristen Campbell is the go-to choice for net for Team Canada. She had an outstanding career with Wisconsin. I don't know if you remember that 2019 tournament run where she didn't allow a single goal throughout that entire tournament. And from talking to other players who played with her at Wisconsin, they said she's like the hardest worker they've ever played with. So I feel like she's probably going to be the starter for Team Canada. But the other two goalies you mentioned had great NCAA careers, and I think will make solid backups for Campbell if she is the starter.
Now, onto the defense side of things, you've got Aaron Ambrose, a grad of Clarkson, Ashton Bell, who's one of three active NCAA players on this team. Going down the list, Jamie Bourbonnais, a graduate of Cornell, Renata Fast, graduate of Clarkson. Then you've got Jocelyn LaRock, graduate of Minnesota Duluth, who has had quite the career for Canada over the years at Olympics and World Championships and stuff. And then Ella Shelton as well as Claire Thompson to round out that D core. So they've got quite a bit of D that have quite a bit of experience playing for Canada and playing in the NCAA. What are your thoughts on D core for Canada this year?
Yeah, I think I love their some of their younger players there on their defense core. Jamie Bourbonnais and Ella Shelton come to mind for myself. They had great NCAA careers, and I'm excited to see them on the national stage going against some of the best players in the world. So I think those are two great additions for Team Canada because I know they haven't had that much national team experience with their countries, but I had them on the podcast. They're great people, and they're obviously great players. I'm excited to see what they do for Team Canada. And then Ashton Bell, I think, will be someone to look out for. After she had a great career with Minnesota Duluth so far, I don't know if she's going to return for her fifth year or not, but I'm interested to see how she does with the Team Canada in this tournament.
Now, for the forward side of things, a little more depth than defense, you've got Emily Clark, a 1995 born player who has quite a bit of experience at the Canadian level. Melody Daou, another great Canadian player, 92 born, and the only Canadian on this team that didn't play NCAA. For the Canadian listeners, she played at McGill University in U Sports. So obviously, everyone knows how great of a school that is. Sarah Fillier from Princeton University. She's the second of three women on this team that still play. She has quite a bit of experience as well. And then we go down to Brianna Jenner and Rebecca Johnson. Both of those have had quite the careers with Canada as well. Emma Maltese, the third girl there that has currently playing. She's going back for another year at Ohio State University, where she was a captain last year. Um, Sarah Nurse, who is cousins with Darnell Nurse from the Edmonton Oilers, who just signed a huge ticket there. Kristen O'Neill, Marie Philip Poulin, Jamie Lee Rattray, Jillian Solner, Natalie Spooner, Laura Stacy, and Blair Turnbull round out that forward core for Canada. So, what are your thoughts on that?
Well, they have some great veterans that are returning. I think one that comes to mind is the obvious one, Marie-Phil Poulin, who's probably one of the best women's hockey players of all time. I'm interested to see how she does in this tournament because it's always so much fun to watch her, as well as Rebecca Johnson as well, who those two I feel like have been with Team Canada for most of my lifetime. So I'm interested to see how they do in this tournament as well. But I do like some of their younger players. Emma Malte and Sarah Fillier come to mind. They've had so far fantastic NCAA careers at their respective schools. And Sarah Fillier didn't get the chance to play last year because the Ivy League got shut down. So I think this is going to be a very motivating time for her to finally get some games in and represent our country. So those two players I'm very excited to see. Like I said, I've had Emma Malte on the podcast. I know she's been on your podcast as well. Fantastic person, but she's also obviously a very good player as well. And I think will provide great offensive depth for that Canadian team. And then Kristen O'Neill, I think that's a player that a lot of people aren't talking about too not enough. She had a great career with Cornell, was the captain of Cornell her sophomore year. So I think that just shows how good of a leader she is. And I feel like she can definitely bring some offensive depth to the Canadian team as well. But they also have some good Olympic veterans as well with Emily Clark, Sarah Nurse, and Laura Stacy, who I think had great NCAA careers. And Emily Clark is right now becoming one of the best women's hockey players in the world right now. I don't know if you saw that goal she scored last night. It was absolutely filthy. So I think those players, I'm very, very looking forward to watch them play in this tournament. And obviously it's cool seeing them play in college hockey. They had great careers, and to see them do it again with the national team is going to be fun to watch.
Yeah, absolutely. I know one of the girls in Canada, I forget who it was, but she scored a lacrosse goal in the warm up last night, and it
That
just
was Poulin.
shows the level of skill these girls have and how much fun they want to have, especially after a lot of them with the PWHPA only getting a few games in and some of them not really even playing at all this year besides the NCAA girls. So it's been 2 long years for them with this tournament being canceled, and this is their big showcase to get to the NWHL or where they want to be in their careers. So it's a big tournament for sure, but we'll get into the college hockey side of things a little bit here. Just have you break down the U.S. side, who your players to kind of watch are, and some of the highlights you have from them.
Yeah, so obviously for forwards, players to look out for, I think Hillary Knight and Kendall Coyne. We all know what they've done for Team USA in their careers, but I think they're always players to look out for in every tournament they play in, just because they provide great veteran leadership, but they're also great goal scorers as well. And they were on that top line last night for Team USA in that pre-tournament game. So those are definitely two players to look out for. I think another player to look out for that I think a lot of people are talking about is Alex Carpenter. She had a great career with Boston College, and I think she might have won the Patty Kazmaier or was a top 3 nominee. I don't have my notes with me, so I'm not quite sure about that. But I think she's going to provide a great offense for that second line for Team USA. And then Haley Skamura, I think this is her first national team experience in the World Championships. I think she's a fantastic player. I had her on my podcast. And I think she'll definitely provide great offensive depth for that U.S. team. And then obviously Amanda Kessel as well. It's so much fun watching her play, and to see her do it again with Team USA is going to be fun to watch. I think she will be a great addition for that second line and providing great goal scoring opportunities for Team USA, and also provide that veteran leadership, like I just mentioned, for Coyne and Knight.
Yeah, absolutely. On the Canadian side, a couple of girls that you definitely got to watch out for. Ashton Bell, she captained the 2017 under-18 team to a silver medal. She was a top 3 player for Canada in that tournament. 125 games played in the NCAA, 86 points, and was captain for Minnesota Duluth last year, heading into her 5th year this year. Sarah Fillier, won back-to-back medals at that under 18 tournament, silver, then a bronze, and her second year was a top three player of the tournament. And she was a Patty Kaz finalist 2 years in a row, 2018 and 2019, and has 114 points in 60 career games at Princeton, which is pretty remarkable when you think about it. 44 goals and 70 assists. And the last one of the current players to watch out for is, of course, Emma Maltese. Back-to-back silver medals at that under 18 tournament for Canada, has 158 points in 130 games. And for the people that don't know, for her at Ohio State, she's 13 points from all time leading and 21 assists away from all time. So for her to be at Ohio State and be top of that school is pretty amazing. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, no, I totally agree. I think Malte is one of the best players and has been one of the best college hockey players in the past 4 years. And she also helped lead Ohio State to their first two Frozen Four appearances as well. So I think she's definitely been a key member for that Ohio State women's hockey program. And I feel like she's definitely going to provide a lot of good offense for Team Canada in this tournament. And for myself, I just want to interject a little bit. I never mentioned the defenseman, but one defenseman I want to look out for also from Ohio State is Jinsey Dunn. Like I said before, she had a great career with Ohio State, helped lead them to that first Frozen Four, like I just said, but she also helped lead them to their first one of their first WCHA championships in 2020 before the season got shut down. And I think she was a key reason for that. She's a great offensive defenseman, can be put on the power play as well if Team USA wants her to do that role. But I think she's fantastic. Great skater, great shutdown defenseman, one of the most complete players I've ever seen in college hockey. And I'm excited to see her play for Team USA and do well in this tournament like I know she's going to.
Yeah, absolutely. And now a couple other Canadians that you definitely got to look out for. Melody Daru, obviously. Rebecca Johnson's going to have quite the tournament. Marie-Philip Poulin, who's the captain of the team. Jenner's an assistant. LaRock is an assistant, and Turnbull's an assistant. So that entire leadership group. Thinking back to the World Juniors this year for Canada, the leadership group they had there definitely was the best guys on that team, and that's what's happening here with this Canadian team yet again. I'll throw it over to you to talk a little bit about the leadership group that Team USA has and the skill set they bring to the team.
Yeah, like I just said, Decker, Coyne, and Knight have all been there, done that before, obviously winning the gold medal for Team USA in 2018. So I think they're going to provide great leadership for these younger players like Britta Curl, who's just won a national championship with Wisconsin. I forgot to mention her as part of the lineup. I think she'll provide great offensive depth for Team USA, and I think she'll be a good young player and a good player to learn, from those older players, like I just talked about, like Coyne, Decker, and Knight. So, and then obviously Amanda Kessel, she's been there, done that. She will provide great leadership. And then on defense, Keller and Barnes, I think, are the biggest leaders for that decor just because they won a gold medal with Team USA in those Olympics. I think where the U.S. might have some leadership, I guess, quote unquote, issues, even though I don't think that's going to happen, is goaltender, just because Maddie Rooney was the starter for Team USA in the 2018 Olympics and she won't be there. But I think Franco's a great goaltender. And then obviously Calavini and Hensley have some great leadership as well, being part of those Olympic teams as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Now we'll transition into schedule wise again for Canada and US. How do you think the Canadians are going to fare in their four games?
I think the U.S. and Canada have sneaky tough games for their group stages. Switzerland, I think, is a team to look out for. Lara Stalder and Alina Mueller have been quietly some of the best players in women's college hockey and in women's hockey. Lara Stalder, if you just look at her elite prospect page, just see how many points she puts up in the Swedish Elite League. It's pretty crazy to think about. And obviously, Alina Mueller's been doing great with Northeastern. So I think Switzerland can definitely give Team USA some problems. I think Russia, even though I don't know many of their players since they don't play in college hockey, they provide a lot of great physicality. And that team's definitely going to give Team USA some struggles like they did in the Olympics, I felt like at times in 2018. So, and then obviously Finland, they have some good players as well. And I think these teams are definitely going to give Team USA and Team Canada some challenges. However, I still think both those teams are going to make it out of the group stage and into the playoffs of this tournament.
Yeah, for sure. Now we'll go through each of the US games and give your score predictions. How do you think they're going to turn out?
For the first game, I think they're going to win 4-1. I think it's against Finland. I just got to pull up my notes here. Yeah, they play the Switzerland team actually, first game. I think that's gonna be 2-1 game. I really think Switzerland's gonna give US some troubles. I think US at times has some issues that they need to fix for that pre-tournament game. I think they will get it fixed, but I think Switzerland's gonna provide Team USA some problems. So I think Team USA is gonna barely win that game 2-1. I think they beat Finland 4-2. I think they beat Russia 2-0, and then I think they lose to Team Canada 2-1.
Now, for the Canadian side, I'm going to say it's about a 4-3 win over Finland. They took them down 4-1 last night, but as we've seen in previous years at other tournaments, including the World Juniors, Finland always gives Canada trouble on the men's side, and I don't expect that to be any different on the women's side. Obviously, a 4-1 game last night, that's not really indicative of the way the game played out, in my opinion. I think Finland's got a lot more to prove. And I mean, for anyone in this tournament, for girls that haven't played in months or some of them even a year or two, depending on what their situation really is with the way COVID played out, it takes a little bit to get your legs underneath you. I mean, they had a time where they were in quarantine and they've only been skating for a few days. So I think it's going to be the same thing as the World Juniors last year, where it takes some of these teams a couple days to get their feet under them, new ice, getting used to that. Obviously, for anyone outside of Canada, the US, they're on a different ice surface now. A lot of teams overseas are playing on Olympic-size ice, and I think that's the case in Calgary this year, so they're lucky with that. But it does take a little bit getting used to when you're in a new country and stuff. So yeah, 4-3 for Canada in their first game, and then I think it's going to be 5 or 6-1 against Russia. They didn't have the greatest showing against the States last night, and I think Canada is just as good as the States in this tournament, so they'll give them a run for their money. And then following that up, they obviously got that game against Switzerland. As you say, Switzerland comes out hard, so I'm going to say 3-1 for Canada, and wrapping up against the US, I'm going to say 4-0 Canada.
Oof. I disagree with you on that. I think Team USA will definitely score some goals against Canada. It's always a good battle between USA and Canada, but I don't think it's going to be a shutout like you predict.
I think maybe shutout in the first game, and then they'll meet again in the gold medal game. They'll find a way, and it's going to be a 1 goal game, or it's going to be overtime or something crazy, or a shootout. I think Jeff's finally getting rid of that stupid shootout rule. I mean, in a gold medal game, just play overtime till someone decides who's the winner. So I think that in the gold medal game, it's going to be Canada and USA, and that's going to be worth the 1 goal game. And probably an overtime game like it usually is in under 18s for women.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. I think it will probably be an overtime game if Team USA and Canada meet in the gold medal game. But I disagree with you, maybe because I have that American bias. But I don't think it's a problem that they have a shootout after overtime. I think at some point the players get tired if you play like 3 or 4 overtimes, and it just ruins the product and it makes the game not as fun to watch as it was in the first and second overtime. But also loses viewers as well, just because people don't have enough time to watch a 6-period hockey game. So I think they should come up with some overtime rule in the NHL, and I think the way they do in women's hockey is fine. But I think in the playoffs, they should honestly make 3-on-3 overtime in the playoffs. I know that's a bit of a controversial opinion for some people, but at some point, I think they need to find a way to end the game, because World Cup for soccer is probably the biggest tournament in all of sports, and they have a penalty shootout to decide that if it goes that far for the biggest tournament in sports. So I don't think it's a problem that they have a shootout for these international games.
Yeah, I think this year in the World Championships, and maybe it'll be the same for the women, but they were playing 3-on-3 overtime, 20 minutes. And I
Mhm.
mean, it took 5 or 6 minutes, I think, for Canada to score, if I can remember. But I mean, games in 3-on-3, they're ending so quickly, right? You just got throw the 3 women from each team out there and end it. Like,
Mhm.
you don't want to be sitting there for 20 to 40 minutes, especially when at the end of an overtime you've got another 20-minute intermission when you're sitting there at home wanting the game to continue. You've got other things to do. So I mean, I think the IHF is definitely adapting to it more. We've obviously had battles between Canada and the US and in shootouts, Olympics, World Juniors, everything you could think of in hockey, and gold medal games, shootouts, and I think they're kind of fixing that now. I don't have a problem with shootouts, but at the same time, after playing long overtime, it works out. But at the same time, just throw 3-on-3 and end the game in the first couple of minutes.
Yeah, and if the 3-on-3 doesn't work, then maybe put in a shootout. So maybe there's different rules besides just going directly to a shootout after overtime. But I personally think they should find a way to put a shootout in there if the game just won't get complete.
Absolutely. Now, here before we wrap things up, let's each give our prediction on who you think is going to be the champion for this year's tournament.
Well, I hate it. It kind of pains me to say this, Sam, just because I'm a huge Team USA fan, but I do think Canada will probably win this tournament. I was reading a stat that it's been 9 tournaments since Canada has won the gold medal in the World Championships in Canada. So I think that's definitely going to motivate the players, and I think home ice will definitely play a factor if Team USA and Team Canada play in the finals. And I just think Canada, I just feel like it's their year, but I think USA will definitely give Canada some problems, especially if they meet in the finals. But it's going to be a good game nonetheless. But I have Canada winning the gold medal. But I do like to point this out that I think all the teams in this tournament are fantastic. All the players in this tournament are fantastic. They can definitely kick my ass in hockey in any day of the week. So I'm excited to see them showcase their talents in this great tournament. It's finally good that this tournament is underway after it was canceled back in May.
Yeah, and for anyone that's listening, we're obviously not going to be biased to Canada or the USA. There's some great girls on other teams in this tournament, and we're definitely excited for both of us to watch these games for sure. I obviously, as a Canadian, think that we have another great shot at it. I'm hoping, as a Canadian and a hockey fan, that we can end that USA streak. But at the same time, for the viewers that are watching it, hopefully, I mean, maybe it could be two other teams besides Canada and US. I
Mhm.
mean, we kind of saw it a little bit this year at the Men's World Championships where Canada wasn't off to the greatest start and they suddenly turned around after 3 losses to teams you wouldn't have thought. So who knows, some of these teams like Japan or Germany could come in and really stun someone. I mean, Germany did at the Olympics a couple of years ago and the men's side of things. And I mean, obviously the women, it was USA winning, but definitely something to look out for. But again, I have Canada taking it, and it'd be great to see a Canada US game like any time. But I mean, I would love to see a team from that other group like Czech Republic or Germany take them on just
Mhm.
to have a little bit more viewership for sure. I know they're broadcasting it in a lot of countries this year, which is great to see for the women's game as much as they want it to grow, and it will for sure. So it's great to see, but again, I think Canada is going to take it in the end.
Yeah, it's gonna be a good tournament nonetheless. No matter who wins, and I'm excited to see these players, like I said, on this big stage, show off their talents. Especially for myself, since I've had some of them on the podcast. It's like I said, one of the best things about having a podcast, and you could speak to it as well, is seeing the guests that you've had on have success after you had them on the podcast, just because you get to kind of know them a little bit more as as a person. You get to hear their story a little bit as well, and just to see the success they're having is awesome. And when I saw those rosters finally get released and seeing some of my former guests that I've had on my podcast, it just brought a huge smile to my face. I'm like so excited to see them play in this tournament. So if they're listening to this, good luck, and I can't wait to see you guys play and accomplish big things.
Yeah, absolutely. It's my standpoint too for anyone that's been on like Maltese or Frankel. It's been great to have you both on the show, and I mean, nothing but success for both of you. Obviously, uh, it's going to be a great tournament nonetheless for everyone involved, and excited to see some great women's hockey starting tomorrow afternoon.
Yeah, it's going to be good. And I think this is a big opportunity for women's hockey to showcase how good of a sport it is to the world, because I think that we were talking about this earlier. But besides MLB, there's really nothing else going on in the sports world. So I hope people can just take a little bit of their time and tune into this tournament and give women's hockey a chance. And I hope they do. And I hope it helps grow the sport, because I think this is a perfect opportunity for women's hockey to grow just because of when this tournament is being held.
Absolutely. I'm Sam Hosick. That's Matt Cusack. Thanks for tuning in to today's video.